Morning everybody, it's Chris from Student Education with the 4 majors for the 15th of February 2012. Hi guys, going to start with the Euro against US dollar on our 4-screen strategy template. Just be looking at the weekly, the daily, the 4-hour and hourly. Give you a better setup. Okay, weekly. We are midweek. It's Wednesday today, and you can see yes, last week's candle closing on a spinning top formation, and you can quite clearly see that we were trading at prior resistance here. And what we need to see is after a spinning top is a decision candle. See here, doji, got to see a decision, then we act. Doji, act. Doji, split, act. Okay, so that's exactly what we want. We want to see a decision candle. In this case, it would have to be very decisive. If this is to remain bullish, then we need to see a break higher. 1, 2. This is the third week now we've had hesitation in this area here. Are we going to see price falling over this clear resistance level here? Okay, if we do, then we need to see a nice bearish engulfing by the end of week. If not, we could see further consolidation against this area. So 20 period moving average above price, CTC in our favor, everything's red for further shorting. If we do see a definite ceiling level here, then we must wait for a decision candle. If we look at the daily, for example, there again you can see some highs and pulling back off those highs. Okay, 13,2500. Price failed to materialize. A bullish move, indecision, spinning top, and then a bearish engulfing. And we've seen price for the last 2 days. Asian session last night, bouncing on the 20 period moving average. If I just put in a February tracement figure, you can quite clearly see the 23.6 2 days ago was support. Then we had a breakout yesterday, and trading this morning on the Asian session, we've seen price trading higher. If we see it failing to hold those highs and closing lower than 23.6 this evening, then we should see a continuation lower. Hopefully the 20% moving average or 20 period moving average will be breached, and we should be looking for further shorting opportunities. Notice the CTC on the other side is red and we have blue, so we don't have a confirmation of a true sell or buy in this case. So look for your intraday charts to see if we could see. So all you need to do is just understand that the 23.6 has to be breached either way. So going into this afternoon's session, US session trading, if we can trade above that area, and then we could see a potentially further movement. If not, then we could see a retracement to the downside. So let's put those in on our intraday. So let's look at the 4-hour, for example. Notice for the first time 4-hour 50 period moving average acting as a nice support through this, and then we had a lot of indecision, a lot more red coming in as we've had higher highs since the 16th. If I take the February tracement from the low to the high, you can see the 20.6 price the last 4 hours has moved higher and is trading higher. Okay, lower swings depicting downside movement. There we go. If you take those highs or you take the body high, it's entirely your choice. Just make sure if you're doing body to body, not body to wick, it's got to be like this. So if you're doing that way, then the bodies, you're looking roughly around this area here for potential resistance to prop up. 50 period moving average above price at the moment, as well as the 20 period moving average. Notice support before, now resistance, and price moved lower. Got to get above that and above that trend line. If you clearly see that on hourly, RSI is trading more under the 50% line and less on the top. Notice where price is trading as we speak at the institution moving average. Prior resistance likely to happen occur here again. 50 period moving average, as is a clear resistance level on this pair. So we've seen price moving higher, but it needs to get above that resistance area. So trading well above 1320 on hourly, ideally, would definitely and wait for the RSI to go positive. And then you can see we have 2 parts of our strategy requirement. We just need the other 2, the CTC ribbon on the other side to go blue, but we need to be trading above that institution moving average to be definitely positive. Okay, so if we take that area here, as I mentioned, it's 1316, and plot that. Okay, as long as we remain above 1316, then that's the 23.6 fib area, then we could see prices pulling higher. However, if we see a break below that, bearish engulfing, failure at the institution moving average and pulling lower, and RSI staying below this, the 50% line, and the CTC remaining red on either side, then we could see potentially for a pickup, and then look for those low points here at 1308 intraday for potential target to the downside. Next up is sterling. Let's have a look at the weekly. Yep, you can quite clearly see more action happening after a number of weeks, 3 weeks of upside movement. Then price pretty much stayed at the lower end, forming a shooting star here at the 50 period moving average, and then we saw price this week starting the week lower, slightly moving higher, but then we started to see yesterday we saw some lows. However, looking at the daily, you can see that price, after heading straight into the institution moving average not so long ago, and we saw price failing at the level previously, you can see price really pulling back, and I think yesterday testing the 38.2 fib and bouncing higher. So supported about 23.6 at one stage, then the candle before opening lower and then rallying and then closing still higher than the previous day, but under the 23.6. A lot of selling came into yesterday, really taking us down to 38.2, and then we saw price on the Asian session this morning bouncing, opening higher and pulling back. One thing to note though, on the daily, we are still looking bullish on this on our CTC. However, we're on a pullback. If it breaks below 38.2, then we should be looking ideally for 50% line at the 50% moving average. Just looking at the hourly, 4-hour, apologies, you can quite clearly see that I've drawn my fib retracement levels here from the all-time lows we saw just recently, and you can see the 23.6 price staying above that for quite a substantial amount of time, and then breaking low with a lot of indecision, with decision after spinning some shooting stars, and then price really falling to 38.2. However, hammer formation just before the end of the day, and we saw some buying coming into it on the Asian session this morning. However, we are testing that intraday price support and resistance, quite a noticeable one here. Through here, resistance, support, 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 and further resistance here at the 157300 mark. So need to be breaking above that, and if so, then we're going to be running straight into this trend line area here. CTC has gone red on our 4-hour, and if we fail to see a break below above 157300 and price rallying into the US session, then there's likelihood that we could see potential consolidation with an outlook for further bearishness for the remainder of this week. It's back down to 38.2 would be a good start. A break below that would clearly see 50% here at the institution moving average at 1560 being our next potential target. If you look at the hourly chart, you can quite clearly see that market direction, trend line, lower swings depicting downside movement, and you can see on the hourly now, price has just been hesitant around this area here at 157300, which happens to be that very important support and resistance level, as I mentioned, on the 4-hour. So price has clearly got to get above that, but then we're fighting against the 50 period moving average, and once we do that, then we're going to be fighting against the institution moving average, which is not too far away from that. Price on the RSI is still below 50, so very much still negative. Quite clearly see there's more happening below the 50 than above, so we should be looking for undoubtedly should be looking for more bearish sentiment. Very mixed match on the CTC. The CTC as we stand now is blue on all parts on the hourly. However, we haven't broken above the 157300 mark, and we're not trading higher than this trend line, so we will not be taking a trade until such time as it's doing that. Moving swiftly on to the US dollar Swiss franc. On the weekly, you can quite clearly see a lot of support through here. It's the third week where we've seen price headbutting itself or finding support here at 9100, just above the 9100 mark on this pair. CTC still remains red across the board on the weekly. You can clearly see, even though we've had a massive pull to the upside, seems to think that sentiment is still negative on this pair, and we're still trading below the institution moving average. If you look at the daily, for example, you can quite clearly see that support, as I mentioned. Full number of couple of weeks now where prices have been bouncing higher, not breaking previous highs. We do have to get above this prior high here, just below the 92.30 mark. And funny enough, the 20-period moving average is still acting as resistance level on this. CTC is extended red on either side. We are consolidative at the moment now. If you want to live in the box, just put a box pattern. Quite clearly see that we're trading in between this pair. That means intraday you could potentially look for buying and then selling at the tops and sell the tops to buy back at the bottom. But as it stands now, we are still consolidative but negative on this pair. You look at the 4 hour, you can quite clearly see that price moving sideways, a lot of indecision as we move sideways. Price failed to break above price support. You had resistance at the 92.60 mark, and we've seen price pulling back. Institution moving average still above price here, and most of the CTC is still negative. Yes, we've seen it was blue for a start of this morning. However, got to be breaking above 92.60 to even consider going long. But even then, you got to worry about the institution moving average. So, got to be very, very patient on this pair. And at the moment now, not really anything to get excited about at the moment. Hourly, we saw for a long period of time price trading below the 50-period moving 50% line, and now you're seeing price spending more time above. It can remain above this. You can quite clearly see the price is testing, or is trading above the institution moving average for the first time in as many weeks. If we can stay above here, and that we are starting to see the likes of bullish sentiment creeping into this pair. However, we do need, as I mentioned, to be trading well above 92.6, ideally above 90.30 to be even more positive. But get above this area here. Otherwise, we are still trading consolidative. So as it stands now, RSI spending more time above. It's a good sign. As long as it can remain that way, then we should start looking for potentially buying setups later on in the week. This pair has really been surprising everybody. I mean, look at the weekly here. We've had such good gains over the past week and a bit, and we're still seeing a price definitely breaking higher than this consolidator range at 78 and heading straight into the 50-period moving average. Just be aware, the 50-period moving average in the weekly, we've had prior resistance along this level for quite some time. Just for heads up, we do need to be trading higher than that at the end of play this week. If we can get above that area this week, then it just favors more upside movements. If we look at the daily, for example, look at that movement to the upside. Clearly seeing breakouts to the top here at 7800. As I mentioned, the institution moving average was a potential resistance level for this pair. Yesterday's trading range just broke straight through that, really taking out those highs, and this all boding well for further extensions higher. As you can quite clearly see, this being a real resistance level in the past. Institutional intervention along the way has seen price trading high in this, but failing to really maintain those highs. So it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of days, by the end of the week, if we are seeing price trading higher than this. If we can, it bodes well for further extensions. I mean, look here, quite clearly see the first extension on this run, and that slight pullback before, and then yesterday's candle. If that's a genuine swing here, you can see the 61.8. But ideally, 100% of this initial move here would take us way up here to roughly the 70.20 mark. So if you can hang above these highs or this level by the end of the week, then we could see potentially price still growing on this momentum and heading higher, which would be great for this pair. So look for that, for this momentum to continue. Clearly a ceiling level above us, the 61.8 on the daily is in play at the 78.50 mark. So if we can get above those levels and then stay above the 50 here, then we should be looking for high extension. So if price can maintain those highs above 78.30 intraday, so if we just put those in 78.30, there we go, stay above that consolidation range. Now you can see here on the hourly, there we could see potentially price just pulling back to have a breather, and then we could see potentially prices heading higher again in the not too distant future. So if you look at the start of this move this morning, the past couple of days, from here to the high that we've just seen here, 23.6 is in play with the 78.3. Stay above there, fantastic. Or a break below that, could see 38.2, and ideally 50 would take us back to this trend line that we've seen on the daily, on the 4 hour, which wouldn't be too much of a problem as long as it stays above that area. Okay, quite clearly 78.3 would be an ideal place for price to stay above. But if it goes down to 78, and you'll know that 7800 at the 50% line here is a long-term support and resistance. So clearly that would be our last port of call. Break below 78 would see price putting right back below those areas that we broke out just recently from. So if anything, if we can as I mentioned, maintain these highs and stay above 78, which is long-term, that prior resistance that we saw for a number of months, because it's broken above it clearly yesterday. If we can stay above that area long term, fantastic. So if you have any pullbacks, it depends how much of this momentum is drawn now. The shorter the momentum pullback, the more likelihood that we can see higher highs, because there's still more buying contracts out there. There's more bullish sentiment in it. The further back it pulls, the less sentiment for bullish upside movement is in it, and we should see price really falling back. But I think we've seen a lot of momentum to the upside on this pair, and the Japanese government has really been helping this move recently to try and get the US dollar to some more momentum in the US dollar. It's clearly working. I mean, we've broken above prior resistance, which is fantastic for this pair. As long as we can stay higher than the 78 long term, then all we're going to see is potentially a pullback. It depends how big this pullback is, as I mentioned. The shorter the pullback, the more bullish sentiment is still in it. The further back it pulls, the less bullish sentiment there is to start with. So if anything, the last resort pullback would be 50%, because then it'll be testing our prior long-term support and resistance. Breaks down to 61.8 and closes lower than that, then we can see price reverting way down to the downside, and this movement here will just end up being a nice long wick, a shooting star formation on our daily or weekly. Okay, we don't want to see that situation. I don't think, with all the momentum we've seen recently, I think it's going to be positive, favorable buying sentiment on this. I think we might see 23.6 heading here, if anything, down to 38.2, and then we're going to see the extension moving higher. So as it stands now, Japan, or the Japanese yen, US dollar Japanese yen, is probably the only one with really any balls at the moment, and moving higher, as you can see. So clearly, if we can remain above this area at 7800, long term we're looking pretty for further extensions to the upside. That's it, folks. Hope you have a fantastic trading day today. Keep it simple. I trade over 4 hours, these 4 templates, my weekly, daily, 4 hour and hourly. They give me everything I need to know about what's happening in the market. Got to just factor in patience with that, and I can assure you you'll come out a lot more positive in your trading. Until then, trade serenely.